I have transmigrated into the life of a genuine heiress. The female protagonist is but a counterfeit heiress, and later, when her true identity is unveiled, she colludes with the male lead to orchestrate the fiery demise of Jiang Nian and her family of three, all to seize the family fortune. After Jiang Nian's tragic death, she witnesses the counterfeit heiress living a life of luxury and adoration, which fills her with an overwhelming resentment. In her fury, she allies with vengeful spirits to bring about the annihilation of the world, ultimately leading to its rebirth. Jiang Nian, unwilling to relive this cycle, summons me to take her place. The silver lining is that all of this is yet to transpire, however. The unfortunate reality is that I find myself transported back to the very moment of my birth, where I bear witness to the exchange that took place. Just as I ponder my next course of action, my biological mother, taking advantage of the slumbering state of the female protagonist's mother, stealthily swaps me back. When just a little more, you're almost there. Yes, precisely like that. Upon awakening once more, I confront the moment of my birth. I feel a force urging me outward. I hastily follow the direction of this impetus. Here she comes. It's a girl. The nurse gently lifts me, meticulously wiping away the remnants from my face with a towel, and tenderly wraps me in a swaddling cloth. Baby, this is your mother. She beams, presenting me to Zhang's mother. With great effort, I manage to open my eyes and behold Zhang's mother, her pallid complexion barely concealing her joy. An inexplicable sense of familiarity and warmth stirs within me.
Wait.
Something feels amiss. Shouldn't a newborn only perceive indistinct shapes? Why can I see everything so clearly? Well, considering I have already transcended reality, what is beyond my grasp? I emit a few soft coos towards Zhang's mother before being enveloped by an overwhelming wave of slumber. Point 2. In the midst of a peaceful slumber, I sense hands wandering across my body. I begrudgingly open my eyes, only to utter a series of nonsensical sounds. It dawns on me that I have indeed been reborn as a newborn infant. As the nurse attends to my cleansing, I take the opportunity to survey my surroundings. This appears to be the newborn bathing area, adorned with charming cartoon motifs on the walls and bathed in a gentle glow. Nearby, there lies another newborn awaiting a wash, wrinkled and far less appealing than I. Before I can fully absorb my surroundings, I am suddenly engulfed by a dizzying rush of foreign memories. Once I regain my composure and assimilate the memories, I witness the scene of the switch. The nurse, who had just been tending to both me and the other infant, has been replaced by a new figure. This woman, an amiable-looking nurse in her mid-40s, is none other than the female protagonist's grandmother, Wang Tsuehua. Wang Tsuehua is surreptitiously fiddling with something near the adjacent baby carriage. Moments later, she approaches me, clutching a wristband tightly in her grasp. Upon noticing my awakening, she glares at me with malice, then roughly seizes my foot, forcefully removing my rightful band and affixing it to the neighboring infant instead. She hastily departs, taking the wristband out of my sight. I realize Wang Tsuehua intends to bestow my wristband upon the other infant. With only the three of us present, crying is futile, I must devise a clever plan to expose her treachery. 3. The individual with whom I have just exchanged identities is none other than the daughter of fate in this realm, commonly referred to as the female protagonist. This is a world steeped in authenticity, yet it exists in a state of rebirth. Prior to this renewal, the protagonist's grandmother, employed at a hospital, found herself in a somber mood due to recent complaints against her. In a moment of vengeful impulse, while tending to her granddaughter and a child from a wealthy family, she orchestrated a switch between the two. She discreetly dismissed another nurse and proceeded to inform her son and daughter-in-law of her actions, to which they remained silent, choosing to let the error persist. If one were to encapsulate the essence of the original protagonist in a single phrase, it would be a destitute household, a malevolent grandmother, a harsh mother, an indifferent father, an overbearing brother, and a fractured self. After completing 9 years of compulsory education, the original protagonist's parents refused to support her further studies. Fortunately, a compassionate teacher took it upon themselves to sponsor her, Jiang Nian, through university. Upon graduation, her parents arranged a marriage with a foolish and volatile man, solely because he offered a bride price of 500,000. When she resisted, they resorted to violence until she acquiesced. Following the marriage, the original protagonist suffered grievously, her body marred by injuries both new and old. Upon inadvertently uncovering the truth of her lineage, She embarked on a nighttime journey to meet her biological family. Thankfully, upon learning the truth, her parents did not favor the female protagonist and resolved to return her to her biological family while pursuing legal action against her. In response, the female protagonist conspired with her fiancé to commit financial fraud and murder. The original protagonist's life was fraught with suffering. Her only sweetness had yet to be savored before it melted away in the inferno. Following his ascent to wealth, the male protagonist, Xie became increasingly arrogant. Flouting the law and leaving his adversaries in ruin, their family shattered and lives destroyed. The spirits of those victims, filled with resentment, transformed into vengeful specters, joining forces with the original protagonist to bring about the world's demise, compelling the heavenly way to expend 2/3 of its essence to initiate a rebirth, leaving it gravely injured and in a state of unconsciousness. After the rebirth, the former inhabitant of this body could scarcely contain her eagerness, descending into the realm of beasts and becoming an adorably plump panda. Subsequently, I inexplicably found myself transported into this world, assuming the form of an infant. 4. As I pondered my next steps, a human visage suddenly appeared before me, startling me to the brink of a scream. Hush! The newcomer, evidently surprised by my alertness, swiftly placed a finger to their lips, signaling me to remain quiet, and then gently patted my head. The soft glow of the moonlight filtered through the window, casting a delicate illumination upon the floor. Utilizing this ethereal light, I finally discerned the visitor's identity. Was that not my own mother? What was she doing? Sneaking a glance at the child in the adjacent bed in the dead of night. As she continued to stroke my head, an expression of regret and embarrassment suddenly crossed her face, and she promptly lowered her hand from her lips. It seemed her maternal instincts had momentarily clouded her judgment. After all, I was merely a newborn and could hardly comprehend the implications of her actions. With a sigh, she resolved to inspect for a birthmark behind my ear, hoping to confirm my identity before awakening the money-driven woman, for it would be a challenge to reclaim the child once she was roused. My mother gently cradled my face, turning it to the left with care, and I instinctively complied. I noticed her hand tremble slightly as it held my face, prompting me to gaze up at her in confusion. A droplet of moisture fell onto my lips, and I instinctively licked it. It tasted salty, reminiscent of tears. Could it be? Was Mother crying? Had she realized that I was indeed her child? Was she merely inspecting for a birthmark? Yet, why had she not discovered this in my previous life? A further examination of my memories revealed that in her prior experience, my mother had fainted during childbirth. In this life, however, my own efforts to be born alleviated some of her burden, allowing for a smooth delivery, and she remained conscious throughout. My mother fought to suppress her tears. She finally understood why the money-driven woman had consistently denied her the chance to see the child. Moreover, the money-driven woman had initially greeted her with a beaming smile when first seeing the baby, but within a mere afternoon, her demeanor had shifted to one of cold indifference. Her smiles now forced. It was evident that she must have realized this was not her child. How could such malice arise from someone with whom she had no prior enmity? Anger flickered in my mother's eyes as her fists unconsciously clenched, her nails digging painfully into her palms, yet she seemed oblivious to the discomfort. The more she contemplated, the more incensed she became, yearning to confront the woman and unmask her deceitful facade. However, just as she was about to take that fateful step, rationality reined her in like a taut leash. What if the money-driven woman refused to acknowledge the truth? This thought doused her fervor with a bucket of cold water. My mother recalled the money-driven woman's mention of her mother-in-law, Wang Xuehua, who worked as a nurse in this very hospital. It was likely that she was the mastermind behind the exchange of infants. The concern that Wang Xuehua might have acted impulsively, coupled with the brevity of the time frame and lack of evidence, loomed large. Wang Xuehua could easily claim that another nurse had mistakenly swapped the identification bracelets during the cleansing process, as there were no surveillance cameras in the nursery or bathing area for newborns. Even if evidence surfaced proving Wang Xuehua orchestrated the switch, such an act, devoid of monetary exchange, would only constitute child abduction, not trafficking. The penalties for abandonment and child abduction would likely result in a mere few years' imprisonment, insufficient to satisfy her desire for justice, and good behavior could lead to a reduced sentence. Upon further reflection, my mother realized that the punishment would be far too lenient to quell her resentment. A spark of inspiration ignited within her. Perhaps she could turn the tables and employ the same tactics against the perpetrator. Since she was so fond of swapping, it would be time to reciprocate. In the hushed confines of the hospital room, my mother's breathing became somewhat rapid. She could not afford to delay any longer. With utmost caution, She placed her own child in her hospital bed, unfastening the identification bracelet. She hastily approached the infant's crib, swiftly making the exchange. Once completed, she cradled the sleeping infant and returned it to the adjacent crib. With each step, she exhaled a sigh of relief, fearing that the child might awaken as she moved. Thankfully, all had gone smoothly. My mother returned to her bed, cradling her own baby with an abundance of affection, her gaze filled with both tenderness and trepidation, as though nothing in the world could compare to the little one before her. 5. I silently observed my mother's recent actions, utterly astounded. I had anticipated that upon discovering the child had been switched, she would confront the money-driven woman, ultimately leading to her imprisonment and the repercussions of her actions. Instead, my mother chose to remain patient and quietly retrieved the swapped child. Such cunning, truly remarkable. This approach not only circumvented the potential pitfalls of insufficient evidence, thereby evading the punishment of the wicked, but also ensured that the female protagonist's family would ultimately face the consequences of their own malice, a dual victory. I offered a radiant smile to my mother as she held me, and in her gentle embrace, I drifted into slumber. Ti, wah 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 wah. The wails echoed through the room. Oh, please don't cry. The money-driven woman initially maintained her composure, attempting to console the infant softly. However, as the cries persisted, her patience wore thin. In a fit of frustration, she patted the baby's bottom, inadvertently causing the cries to escalate. I was roused from my slumber by the cacophony of the infant's lamentations. Blinking my eyes open, I followed the sound, only to encounter my mother, whose face was alight with joy. The little one has awakened. I am your mother. Why the frown? Is the noise from next door bothering you? My eyes brightened as I responded with a soft sound of acknowledgement. My mother, observing my reaction, chuckled softly. Oh, you clever little one. As the cries from the neighboring bed showed no signs of abating, my mother kindly suggested to the money-driven woman, Sister, perhaps you could allow me to take a look at the baby? This incessant crying cannot continue. Absolutely not. The money-driven woman's voice rose sharply, and a fleeting look of panic crossed her face. It's just that she probably saw her father earlier and is now crying because he is not here. Once he arrives, she will settle down. Yet, the money-driven woman's gaze evaded my mother's, betraying her unease, as she forced a calm explanation. I see. By the way, sister, how many more days do you plan to stay? My mother, seemingly oblivious to the money-driven woman's agitation, continued to inquire with her usual warmth. In the afternoon, I prepared to leave, feeling uneasy about leaving the children at home. Qianmu responded, seemingly concealing something, and added, So soon? I had intended to stay a few more days. Jiangmu feigned surprise, yet her eyes glimmered with a hint of mockery. I lay in the stroller, taking in Jiangmu's expression. From the moment Jiangmu mentioned wanting to see the baby in Qianmu's arms, a mischievous smile played upon her lips. It was only at this moment that I realized Jiangmu had intentionally instigated panic and fear in the protagonist's mother. As time swiftly passed, 10 years slipped by in the blink of an eye. On this day, upon returning home from school, I was eager to ascend to my room and indulge in a game to alleviate the fatigue of my studies, but my father called out to me. ACI, come to the study this evening. Your mother and I have something to discuss with you, he said, pausing his work and adopting a serious expression. I nodded in acknowledgement. Knock, knock, knock. I rapped on the study door.
Come in.
Dad, Mom, why must this be discussed in the study? It feels so formal, I inquired, scratching my head in confusion. It's important. Sit down first. Jiangmu gestured with her chin. I hastily took a seat, signaling to my parents that they could begin. Although the forthcoming revelation was somewhat ludicrous, it was indeed true. Jiangmu hesitated before continuing. When you were born, you were maliciously swapped with another child. But I noticed and managed to switch you back. My eyes widened in feigned astonishment. Is this a real-life version of a tale of switched identities? Jiangmu nodded, albeit with difficulty, and couldn't help but retort, yes, but she didn't succeed. Jiangfu, standing nearby, wore a grave expression and sighed softly. The reason we share this with you now is due to concerns that the other child may come seeking recognition, much like in a novel. Jiangmu concurred, yes, ACI. You must remember, you are our biological child. I nodded obediently, Mom. What has become of that family now? Jiangmu replied with a hint of schadenfreude. They've lost their jobs thanks to me, and can only return home to tend to their few acres of land. Jiangfu retrieved his phone, scrolled to an album, and handed it to me. These are photos of that family. If anyone from this group seeks you out, ignore them. They may appear respectable, but their intentions are nefarious. As I examined the photographs, I couldn't help but comment. Meanwhile, in the city of Maple Leaf Village, what are you doing? Who allowed you to take the meat? Do you want to be hit again? The rotund Qian Duo glared fiercely at the pale-faced Qian Qian. Startled by the sudden outburst, Qian Qian reflexively released her chopsticks. Tears welling up as she exclaimed, "It's my birthday today. I just want to eat a piece of meat." "Oh, a birthday? You, a harbinger of misfortune. Still wish to celebrate? Have you taken a good look at yourself?" Wang Tsuehua said, hands on her hips, her anger causing the flesh on her face to tremble. Her words dripping with scorn. Suddenly, Qian Mu, who had been silent beside them, sprang to her feet and slapped Qian Qian across the face. "You little wretch. If it weren't for you shirking work, you wouldn't be talking back, or you wouldn't have to go to school tomorrow. The child of a wretch is merely spoiled." If that wretch hadn't boasted for no reason, the grandmother wouldn't have entertained thoughts of swapping children. How could I have been separated from my biological daughter all these years? Unaware of her well-being, Qian Qian, dazed from the slap, couldn't fathom why her usually indifferent mother was now in a fit of rage. Since she could remember, her daily life had consisted of her brother's beatings, her parents' cold indifference, and her grandmother's taunts. She had done nothing wrong, yet everything was unjustly placed upon her. Confused, she wondered why, if they disliked her so much, they had even brought her into the world. Touching her painfully throbbing cheek, she broke down in tears and yelled at her mother, "If you have the guts, just kill me. I'm your daughter too. Why does he get everything while I have to work myself to the bone?" After shouting, she turned and fled. Seeing her run away, Qian Fu remarked irritably, "Don't push her too far. Who will do the chores if she truly leaves? If she wants to eat, just give her a little." Qian Mu replied defensively, "I don't want this either, it's just that she insists." "Enough, go find her," Qian Fu interrupted, cutting her off.
Qian Mu scoffed, unmoved.
"You expect me to go after that little brat? Not a chance. Ever since we brought Qian Qian home, everything has gone awry. First, my mother was reported for taking bribes and lost her job. A few months later, both Qian Fu and I were laid off, and no other company would hire us. We were forced into factory work. There, not only was the pay meager, but the workload was unbearable, leaving us exhausted. Eventually, we couldn't take it anymore and returned home to tend to those few acres of land, but the returns were pitifully scant. In the city of Zhang's family, a birthday banquet was underway. A Yun, find a way to become good friends with Jiang Xi, understood? A beautiful woman urged the unruly boy beside her. Got it. He's just a little brat. It'll be easy to handle, Xia Yun responded nonchalantly, a hint of disdain in his gaze. Today marked my 10th birthday, and my parents had organized a grand celebration. I slipped away from the crowd and found a quiet corner in the banquet hall to sit, rubbing my stiff, smiling face. I sighed. I'm so tired. Why are you here alone? Xia Yun appeared beside me, offering a glass of juice. Thanks, but I already have some, I replied, pointing to the half-drunk juice beside me. My name is Xia Yun. It's a pleasure to meet you. Can I be your friend? He flashed a smile, determination gleaming in his eyes. I was taken aback. Is this the male lead? My heart raced with caution. Just then, my parents called for me, and I flashed him an apologetic smile. Sorry, my parents are calling me. Let's chat later. I approached my parents, where Jiang Mu grasped my hand and earnestly warned, ACI. Keep your distance from that boy. His intentions are not pure. Jiang Fu elaborated. The Xia family has recently been embroiled in scandals, and their stocks have plummeted. I raised an eyebrow, pondering. So he wants to use me as a stepping stone for my father to invest in his family's business? He seeks to make us fools. Indeed, there had been rumors in the memories of the original owner about the Xia Corporation nearing bankruptcy, but shortly thereafter, news emerged of its miraculous revival. Soon after, there were whispers of a marriage alliance between the Jiang and Xia families. Xia Yun was truly an ungrateful wretch. The Jiang family had treated him well, only for him to collude with the protagonist's impostor to bring ruin to Jiang Fu and Jiang Mu. In this life, I was determined to witness how he would revive without the Jiang family's investment. I reported to my parents, Mom, Dad. You have no idea how disgusting Xia Yun's gaze was when he looked at me. Jiang Fu's expression darkened. It seems the heat isn't enough. I'll have someone stoke the flames. The thought of the impending downfall of the Xia family made me unable to suppress a smile. 8 years later, at the age of 18, I was accepted into a top university in the country. On the day of enrollment, I spotted the protagonist and her parents, seemingly embroiled in a heated argument. Mom, Dad, look over there. That's the family that swapped me at birth. Let's watch before we leave. Jiang Fu and Jiang Mu were taken aback, following my gaze to see two middle-aged individuals tugging at a haggard-looking girl. You can attend university, But only if you get engaged first and marry Dai-hai in 2 years. Otherwise, I will come to your school every day to cause a scene. Qianmu's voice rang out provocatively, her expression twisted with malice, as she glared at Qian. Indeed, we don't expect you to marry immediately. Just secure the engagement first. And you can spend the next 2 years with Dai-hai. If you're still unsatisfied after that, so be it. Mr. Qian, with a facade of feigned benevolence and a smile plastered on his face, resembled a quintessential good-natured elder. Qian, on the verge of exploding with indignation, thought to herself that despite the sweet words, was he not merely trying to barter her away? Were it not for the legal stipulation that a woman must be at least 20 years old to wed, she might have already been coerced into marriage. Moreover, the suitor selected by her mother was far from commendable, a foolish man with a history of domestic violence and 3 previous marriages. To secure an heir with a semblance of intellect, his family had offered a dowry of 500,000. Qian was acutely aware of her mother's obstinacy. It was entirely plausible that she might indeed attempt such an outrageous act. With 2 years still remaining, she reluctantly acquiesced for the time being. Very well. You both may return now and refrain from appearing at my school again. Upon hearing Qian's concession, Mrs. Qian's face lit up with joy as she nodded repeatedly, exclaiming, Good. Truly, my obedient daughter. Mr. Qian, satisfied with the outcome, handed her 500 as if it were an act of charity, instructing, Here, buy yourself some decent clothes. A young lady ought to know how to present herself. Qian felt a surge of humiliation at having to accept the money, wishing to dismiss them outright, but the paltry sum she had earned from her meager job left her no choice. What a pretentious old fool, she thought, her gaze laced with venom as she watched her parents retreat. Jiangmu, filled with trepidation, clutched me tightly, pondering how close my fate had come to mirroring that of Qian. Had she not known that the figures before her were Mr. and Mrs. Qian, she might have felt a pang of sympathy for the girl's plight. Yet, upon realization, all compassion evaporated, replaced with a sense of dark satisfaction. After all, Mrs. Qian had ample opportunity to confess about the child swap. Had she done so, she might have revealed the truth about her second child exchange. Instead, driven by fear of exposure, she hastily finalized her discharge paperwork. Mrs. Qian had chosen a thorny path for her biological daughter. Who else could be blamed? I gently patted Jiangmu's back, assuring her, I will always be by your side, Mama. 1 month into the new semester, Qian realized she had left something vital at home. She approached her teachers to request a day's leave and hurried back, only to find the door ajar. As she was about to head to her room, she overheard a heated argument emanating from her parents' chamber. Curiosity piqued, she stealthily approached the door. Utter nonsense. I saw the woman who shared a maternity ward with me, and beside her was a girl. She must be my biological daughter. Truly, she resembles a fairy. Don't disturb her. Humph, as if I need your advice. Tell your son to treat Qian better. After all, she is our daughter who has enjoyed the affluence of others. It was your mother who swapped her, not me. Why should I be obliged to treat her well? You should have your mother do that. Qian's heart raced to her chest, and she fled before she could hear more. Wandering aimlessly, she was lost in a haze of despair, tears blurring her vision. It was no wonder she had always been invisible to them, enduring the bullying from that insufferable pig. Once she discovered the identity of her biological parents, she vowed to ruin that imposter's reputation. At that moment, her expression darkened ominously, her tone dripping with unyielding resolve. Desperate, Qian dialed Xia Yun's number and recounted the events with embellishments. Yun, could you help me find out who the other person in the ward was? On the other end, Xia Yun, filled with concern, gently reassured her, No problem. Qian, are you alright? Find a place to sit. I'll come to you right away. Hearing his words, Qian obediently sought a seat, her heart swelling with sweetness akin to honey. Xia Yun, a sophomore from the same school, had first met her on the chaotic day when her parents were expelled. That day, feeling utterly dejected, she accidentally bumped into him. Rather than scolding her, he had inquired about her well-being, leading to their exchange of contact information. Within a mere month, they had solidified their relationship, officially becoming a couple. A month later, Qian, I found out. Xia Yun exclaimed, excitement evident as sweat glistened on his forehead from running. Who? Qian's heart raced, anxiety tightening her grip on her clothing. You are the daughter of Jiangji from the Jiang group. That imposter attends the same school as you, Xia Yun declared, his eyes sparkling with enthusiasm. He had not anticipated that his girlfriend was the true heiress of the Jiang family. Although he had always harbored affection for Qian, Marriage had not been in his plans. After all, only a union could elevate the Xie family's status. However, now it appeared that Qian would make an excellent match. By treating her well, winning her favor, and having her advocate for the Xie family within the Jiang household, he could secure collaboration and financial support, paving the way for the Xie family's resurgence. Jiang Group. Qian's emotions spiraled out of control, her voice trembling as she stammered. Ayun, are you certain you are not mistaken? Xie Yun's tone was resolute. Qian, I have verified it multiple times. There is no error. You were meant to be the Jiang family's daughter, living a life of luxury, not suffering indignities in the Qian household. A whirlwind of thoughts raced through Qian's mind, and after a deep breath, she inquired, Ayun, what should we do now? Xie Yun pondered for a moment before responding, I believe we should find an opportunity to contact the Jiang family and reveal the truth. However, we must tread carefully to avoid alerting the Qian family or that impostor to our plans. Qian bit her lip and nodded slightly. All right, Ayun, I will follow your lead. Xie Yun enveloped her in a warm embrace, gently stroking her hair. Qian, fear not. Those painful days are behind you. Once you return to the Jiang family, everything will improve. Yet, unbeknownst to her, a glimmer of calculation flickered within Xie Yun's eyes. In the days that followed, he appeared to be a devoted companion, offering her support and strategy, while secretly orchestrating plans to leverage Qian's identity for the Xie family's maximum benefit. Under Xie Yun's meticulous arrangements, Qian finally encountered Jiang father and intercepted him. Her eyes glistened with unshed tears, her voice quivering with emotion. Father, I am your biological daughter. I was switched at birth. The one you have now is an imposter. With that, Qian produced the evidence that Xie Yun had painstakingly gathered and extended it towards Jiang father. He merely gazed at her, refusing to accept the so-called evidence. His demeanor cold and detached, a sarcastic smile gracing his lips. My dear girl, I am quite certain that a CI is my true daughter. Upon hearing this, Qian tightened her grip on the evidence, her voice rising in desperation. You haven to even examine the evidence, yet you dismiss me as your daughter? For that impostor. You would forsake your own flesh and blood. Do you know how her parents have treated me? Jiang father sighed in exasperation. I believe I have expressed myself quite clearly. There has been no mix-up. If you doubt my words, feel free to undergo a paternity test with your parents. Qian was taken aback by Jiang father's obstinacy. Was that impostor truly so favored by him that he would disregard his own lineage? Sensing the tension, Xie Yun interjected. Jiang uncle, I understand your hesitance, but it would not hurt to review the evidence before forming your judgment. Jiang father raised an eyebrow, momentarily intrigued by the evidence they had mentioned, before taking it to peruse. The evidence lacked the direct exchange. It consisted only of images from outside the ward, a character relationship chart, and finally, photographs of Mrs. Qian clandestinely visiting a CI at school. Jiang father was left utterly disappointed, returning the documents with a dismissive remark. Having seen this, I stand by my original statement. I expected some hidden surveillance footage capturing Mrs. Qian's swap, but alas, this is all you have? However, he could not help but feel a tinge of curiosity at the unfolding drama, reminiscent of a tale from a novel. Xie Yun hesitated, at a loss for words. Xie Yun had never entertained the notion that Qian was not the biological daughter of Zhang's father. He merely found the man excessively cold and unfeeling. As for Zhang's father's suggestion of a paternity test, Xie Yun selectively disregarded it, believing that the evidence at hand was overwhelmingly conclusive, rendering such a test unnecessary. Zhang's father, no longer engaging with the two, turned and departed. Jiang CI, someone is looking for you. I looked up. Surprised to see the visitor was none other than the female lead, Qian. Rising, I approached her and inquired, hello. May I ask what you need from me? Well, regarding your situation, let us find a quiet place to converse. Qian led me to a CAF. As soon as we sat down, she eagerly began. To be brief, I am the biological daughter of Jiangji, and here is the evidence. You are merely an interloper. I advise you to leave while you still can. With that, she produced the evidence and handed it over. I regarded her for a moment, a slight smile playing on my lips. Oh, how predictable, just as my parents anticipated. You have indeed come knocking. Casually perusing the so-called evidence, I noted its impressive thoroughness. Let me be frank with you. You are the biological daughter of the Qian family. When your mother attempted the switch, my mother discovered it and reversed the change. Do not delude yourself into thinking you are the genuine heiress, as romanticized in novels. Upon hearing this, Qian's complexion turned as pale as a ghost, her body trembling with fury. Observing her state, I let out a cold laugh. Is this too much for you to bear? I have grown weary of this farce. Rising, I addressed Qian with feigned kindness. If you doubt my words, you may arrange a paternity test with your parents. My apparent kindness was merely a ruse. I was eager to witness her breakdown upon learning that she was indeed the biological daughter of Qian's mother. Qian, in her current state of turmoil, could not absorb my words. She was convinced that Jiang Xi was attempting to prevent her from reconnecting with her true parents, hoping to monopolize Jiang's family wealth with her fabrications. After my departure, Qian sought out Xie Yun. The two observed Jiang's father's indifference towards his biological daughter and conspired over several days, intending to use the immense pressure of public opinion to compel him to capitulate. Days later, the internet buzzed with discussions surrounding the authenticity of the Jiang family's heiresses. After all, the melodrama of mistaken identities typically found in novels was now unfolding in the real world. The public's innate curiosity reached a fever pitch, and those unaware of the truth hastily condemned Jiang's father, accusing him of disowning his own daughter. In a matter of moments, the Jiang Group's official website was inundated with vitriolic comments and inquiries, while the company's stock began to decline under the weight of this scandal. Upon learning of the situation, Jiang's father promptly issued a clarification on the official website. Recently, many netizens have been discussing the legitimacy of the Jiang family's heiresses. I wish to address the most pressing concern. There's been no mix-up. Jiang Xi is my biological daughter. He included a paternity test as evidence. Qian, unable to fathom the revelation, repeatedly stared at Jiang's father's announcement, murmuring, "Impossible, impossible, I am the true daughter." Convinced that the paternity test was fabricated, she commented below, accusing Jiang's father of falsifying the results. Jiang's father, witnessing the escalating fervor, recognized Qian's hand in the chaos and found it amusingly infuriating. He retorted, "I provided evidence, and yet you refuse to believe it. You declined to undergo a paternity test with your parents while attempting to use public sentiment to coerce me into acknowledging you as my daughter and granting you my inheritance." Netizens found Jiang's father's assertions reasonable and flocked to Qian's pity-inducing videos, urging her to submit to a paternity test with her current parents. Daily, inquiries about her hospital visit inundated her, and even in public, she faced incessant questioning. Overwhelmed by the pressure, Qian reluctantly summoned her parents to undergo a paternity test. Initially resistant, they believed Qian could not possibly be their daughter, fearing that submitting to the test would obliterate their biological daughter's prospects of wealth and privilege. However, upon seeing Jiang's father's clarifying image, anxiety seeped into their hearts. Could it be that Qian was indeed their true daughter? With this uncertainty weighing on them, they accompanied Qian to the hospital, opting for expedited service. 6 hours later, Qian impatiently opened the results, her hands trembling as she turned to the pivotal page. Her eyes widened, her lips turned pale. How could this be? I should be. Before she could finish her thought, darkness enveloped her, and she fainted. Seeing her reaction, Qian's father and mother felt a chill of dread. Yet, clinging to hope, they took the paternity test results into their hands. She is my biological daughter. How could this happen? Mother, did you not say you had switched her? Despair washed over them as they grappled with the reality of their actions and the years lost. Qian's mother cradled the unconscious Qian, weeping uncontrollably. Her heart breaking for the daughter she had long awaited, now seemingly ruined by their past choices. Wang Suihua, bewildered by the situation, could only think of the moment she had made the switch herself. Qian's father was overwhelmed at the thought of the match he had arranged for what he believed was his biological daughter, now realizing he had acted recklessly. In the midst of this turmoil, the only one who remained unfazed was Qian's brother, Qian Duo, who believed it did not matter who was who, as long as he could continue to wield influence. A throng of reporters, having waited outside for some time, rushed in at this spectacle, bombarding them with pointed questions regarding the paternity test results. Within hours, the incident trended on social media. Upon learning of the developments, netizens felt utterly deceived, believing Qian had toyed with their sentiments. Their anger surged, and they flocked to her videos, unleashing a torrent of vitriol and resentment. In an instant, Qian became synonymous with deceit. The rest of the Qian family found themselves ensnared in the public's wrath, facing accusatory glances and whispers wherever they went. In the hospital room, Qian slowly opened her eyes, a flicker of terror and confusion lingering in her gaze. "I'm not dead? Someone saved me?" she exclaimed, disbelief saturating her voice. Reaching for the phone beside her, she glanced at the time. "I have been reborn." She laughed, exhilarated. This time, Zhang Nian, the original protagonist. You shall experience the taste of retribution. Moments later, an epiphany struck her. Her fear transformed into an ecstatic frenzy, her countenance twisted into a maniacal smile.
Indeed.
She was now Qian Qian, the girl who had perished at the hands of the vengeful Zhang Nian. At 18, with 4 years until Zhang Nian's recognition, she believed this time would suffice to secure the family fortune. Soon, she would ensure that the Zhang family would feel the sting of being cast aside, relishing the thought of their downfall. As her excitement grew, vivid images of the Zhang family kneeling in desperation flooded her mind. You're awake, my daughter. You've finally awakened. It's all my fault. Oh, my daughter, how you have suffered. At that moment, Qian's mother hurried into the room, and upon seeing her daughter conscious, rushed to the bedside. What are you doing here? You. Before Qian Qian could finish her sentence, she was overwhelmed by a surge of memories. Once integrated, her expression became dazed. The trajectory of her life had diverged significantly. This time, when Wang Xuehua attempted the switch, Zhang's mother had awakened and reclaimed her child, and Zhang Nian had assumed a new name, Zhang Xi. Why has she awakened? Could it be that Zhang's mother has been reborn? How could this be?
It should not be this way.
I am the heiress of the Zhang family, the rightful owner of my life. It is she who has stolen my existence. You, a venomous woman, are not my mother. Go away, leave me be. Mother Qian clutched her tightly, weeping inconsolably. After a while, Qian Qian finally regained her composure. Regardless of whether Zhang's mother has been reborn or not, she must dismantle the Zhang family. She could exploit the time difference to invest in the lucrative ventures from her previous life ahead of time. But where would the funds come from? She recalled her husband from her past life, her boyfriend in this life, Xia Yun, and hastily dialed his number. Yun, wife, are you alright? Upon hearing this endearment, Qian Qian's eyes sparkled with hope. Darling, you have returned. Haven to you? We are still alive. Yes, I'll come to pick you up shortly. Xia Yun was equally astonished. He realized he was not the only one who had been reborn. Upon hearing Xia Yun's affirmation, Qian Qian breathed a sigh of relief. It seemed she would not need to exert much effort to persuade him. Darling, how much money do you have on hand? Only 500,000. This time, without you in the Jiang family, they turned a cold shoulder when we sought their help, resulting in a significant loss of assets. The investment is simply insufficient. Xia Yun sighed, a frown creasing his brow. We can withdraw some from the company account. Those projects were immensely profitable in the last life. Indeed. Then I shall go and withdraw the money. Xia Yun was swayed, finding her reasoning sound. Overjoyed by his agreement, Qian Qian leapt into his embrace. Once we make a fortune, we will establish our own company, devouring the Jiang family's enterprise and driving those people out. Qian Qian began to dream of their future. Meanwhile, on another front, discussions surrounding Qian Qian continued to trend online. I watched the video, where Qian Qian appeared faint yet still pallid, alongside her heartbroken parents, and felt a surge of delight. In her previous life, her parents believed they had done right by raising the original owner, and that exchanging children was due to Wang Xuehua's insistence. They felt powerless. Now that the biological child had been returned, they wept so sorrowfully. Moreover, Qian Qian had once deemed the original owner too unfeeling towards her parents. Now, in her own shoes, I wonder if she still regards the original owner as heartless. The original memories had recorded some opportunities of the male and female leads, which Qian Qian had now seized entirely. Only one opportunity, fraught with pitfalls, remained. Last time, the original owner had managed to avoid disaster thanks to the chairman of her company, Zhao Jia, who had developed feelings for her and could not bear to harm his goddess. This time, however, due to malnourishment in her childhood, Qian Qian's once radiant visage had diminished from over 90 points to barely over 40. It stands to reason that this time, he would spare no effort in exploiting Qian Qian. The next time I heard news of Qian Qian was through the television. I was aware that the company faced issues. Yet I had not anticipated it would be embroiled in electric fraud and illegal organ trafficking. It turned out that after Xia Yun secured the funds, Qian Qian hastily sought out the flourishing enterprises from her previous life. Unfortunately, due to my prior investment, these businesses were not in need of additional funds and politely declined their offers. Only Zhao Jia's company was willing to let them invest, which sent them into a frenzy of excitement. They signed the contract without thoroughly reviewing it. Initially, they acquired a substantial amount of money, and both tasted the sweetness of success. Xia Yun even mortgaged their villa. Qian manipulated her parents' guilt to convince them to sell their house and several acres of land. When they could no longer produce any funds, Zhao Jia finally revealed his true colors. He disclosed that the contract they had signed was not a share transfer agreement, but a change of legal representative contract. Thus, Qian and Xia Yun found themselves as the legal representatives of two shell companies. After 3 months of legal representation, they met the conditions for a loan. Zhao Jia further deceived them into believing they were signing a share transfer agreement from their second investment. Without hesitation, they signed, burdening themselves with debts of 10 million each. Zhao Jia, engaged in illegal organ trafficking, ruthlessly harvested their kidneys. One might wonder how two individuals who had experienced rebirth could lack the slightest caution.
The truth is,
It ultimately stemmed from the male lead's halo and the contracts from their past life, which had been verified by professional lawyers before being presented to them. Xia Yun had merely been responsible for signing. Additionally, this company had brought Xia Yun substantial profits in their previous life, leading him to subconsciously believe it was without fault. Thus, they were left utterly deceived, stripped bare, and drowning in debt. After Zhao Jia had taken their kidneys, he sent them to engage in electric fraud. In their previous lives, they were the protagonists, after all, and had a modicum of luck accompanying them. After half a year of scamming, on a dark and stormy night, they managed to evade capture and escape. On their flight, they encountered Zhao Jia, and Xia Yun, in a fit of rage, charged at him. Yet, how could a man who had been robbed of his kidneys possibly contend with a healthy opponent? Zhao Jia easily subdued Xia Yun. Qian, having already hidden herself when Xia Yun rushed in, turned and fled without a glance back when she saw him sprawled on the ground like a beaten dog. Xia Yun, regaining his senses, beheld the vanishing figure of Qian and felt a surge of resentment. Fortunately, upon escaping, they stumbled upon patrolling police officers. Before long, the electric fraud den was dismantled and the perpetrators apprehended. Xia Yun was sentenced to 10 years in prison for defrauding 10 million, while Qian, having assisted in the raid, received a 3-year sentence. Due to Xia Yun's reckless actions, the Xia family's small company went bankrupt. The Qian family now found themselves crammed into a tiny rental room, facing the scornful gazes of others each day. Qian was imprisoned, yet she bore the weight of debt, with creditors relentlessly pursuing her family. Every day, they would pound on the door, demanding repayment. The landlord, thoroughly annoyed, evicted the Qian family without collecting any rent. Thus, they lived a nomadic existence. Qian mother gazed at her filthy hands, catching the whiff of an unpleasant odor emanating from her body, and broke down, lamenting, if only we had informed that family upon discovering the child's swap. Perhaps it wouldn't have come to this. Hearing her mother's words, Qian Duo suddenly erupted in a frenzy, attacking Wang Cuihua. It's all your fault. You are to blame. Hearing Wang Cuihua's cries, Qian father snapped back to reality and slapped Qian Duo, exclaiming, unfilial child, she is your grandmother. Are you trying to kill her? Qian Duo glared fiercely at Qian father. Witnessing this scene, Wang Cuihua sobbed uncontrollably, beating her chest in despair. It's all my fault. If I hadn't swapped them to begin with, I am a sinner. It is all my fault. I watched coldly as the Qian family crumbled.
I see.
We must go. I am coming. Every cause has its effect. Good and evil will ultimately be repaid. Jiang mother recounted her return to the rightful timeline. When I died, I was surrounded by my descendants, and I had no regrets in life. Upon awakening once more, I found myself in the fabled realm of the underworld. I followed the ghostly messenger through the gates of hell, along the path of Huangquan, and to the platform of nostalgia. As I passed the stone of 3 lifetimes, tears streamed down my face. I remembered my dear Nian, so obedient and understanding, who perished in the flames alongside her father to save me. It is all my fault. If I had not succumbed to slumber in my previous life, my Nian would not have had to endure such suffering. She would have been like other children, sunny and carefree, rather than perpetually cautious. Great One, I wish to trade all my merits with the King of Hell. Is that possible? I gazed nervously at the ghostly messenger. Fearing rejection, I must first report this to the King of Hell. This was the first time the ghostly messenger had encountered such a situation. Very well. Thank you. Thank you. I fervently grasped the messenger's hand, exhilarated. The absence of an outright refusal signified a glimmer of hope. Soon after, the ghostly messenger returned. The Lord has consented. Follow me. I trailed behind him to the hall of the King of Hell. Lord, the soul has been brought. The ghostly messenger spoke with utmost reverence. I have heard you wish to make a trade with me. The king of hell observed with keen interest the soul before him, radiating with the brilliance of virtue. Indeed, I yearn to alter the fate of my daughter from my previous life. I desire her to embrace a life of happiness and fulfillment. Do you comprehend the immense power required to reset an entire world? However, if the moment of rebirth coincides with your demise, the merits accumulated over your lifetimes may just suffice. I exhaled in relief and proclaimed without hesitation, I am willing to exchange all my merits for the world's renewal.
Thank you, esteemed one.
The king of hell's expression was complex, perhaps surprised that someone would truly barter their entire accumulation of virtue for another's latter life. As you wish. In the city, the Jiang family's villa suddenly ignited in a fierce blaze. Jiang Nian returned home only to witness this catastrophic scene and rushed into the villa in despair. Suddenly, a hand grasped her arm, preventing her escape. No matter how she struggled, she could not break free. Just as she turned to confront her captor, she heard a familiar voice, Nian Nian, mother has returned. Upon recognizing the voice, Jiang Nian's eyes brimmed with tears as she turned and embraced the newcomer. Father, mother, I am so relieved you are safe. In the aftermath, Qian Qian and Xia Yun were sentenced to 6 years in prison for the crime of arson. Qian's parents received 5 years for abandonment and child trafficking, while Wang Xuehua was sentenced to 3 years for child trafficking. You see, in the end, good and evil are always rewarded. Ultimately, I wish for my Nian Nian to have a peaceful life, with past grievances laid to rest, fortune warming her through all seasons, and prosperity flourishing in her wake. Qian Qian's testimony. Before the age of 18, my life was filled with happiness and health. On the day I turned 18, a woman dressed in a rather shabby manner approached me at school, claiming to be my biological mother. I regarded her as one would a clown, thinking it absurd that someone would dare to pull such a stunt. Yet, she spoke with fervor and even produced strands of hair for a paternity test. In a panic, I fled but ultimately took the hair with me. After much hesitation, I decided to undergo the test. Astonishingly, the woman was indeed my biological mother. How could this be? It was utterly laughable that such a farcical situation had befallen me. No, I could not tell my mother, otherwise everyone would know I was an imposter, and they would surely mock me. I would not allow that. The Jiang family must remain mine. Yes, I needed to ensure that family kept their so-called true daughter under close watch. I hurriedly contacted the woman who had approached me, and she agreed to my proposal. Thus, 4 years passed in tranquility until the true daughter arrived, having changed her name to Jiang Nian. I felt increasingly uneasy and, while eavesdropping on a conversation between Jiang's parents in the study, I learned they intended to send me back to my biological family, as I was merely a child swapped by my grandmother. Most importantly, they wished to spare Jiang Nian from heartache. But I was their daughter too. Did my 18 years of affection not outweigh mere blood ties? If they had been mistaken for 18 years, why could they not continue in their error? Why must they seek to rectify it now? Furthermore, how could Qian's parents be so incompetent as to lose track of their own daughter? Shouldn't they have ensured she remained under control? You are forcing my hand. I cannot lose everything. I refuse to be the daughter of a trafficker. Everything belonging to the Jiang family must be mine. I confided in my fiancé, Xia Yun, about the situation, and he remarked that only a dead man's lips are sealed. I believed he was right. I consented to his plan. 2 days later, the Jiang villa was engulfed in flames. To my astonishment, Jiang Nian dashed inside. Perhaps this would reunite their family. With all obstacles removed, I smoothly inherited the estate. Yet, mere years later, peculiar deaths began to occur worldwide. I understood that Jiang Nian had returned. Each night, I could see her, confiding her cataclysmic intentions to me. As I gazed at the sunless sky, I knew she had succeeded. Soon after, I found myself imprisoned in a cramped room by Jiang Nian. She did not resort to physical violence, but rather tormented me psychologically. She blindfolded me, letting droplets of water fall onto my forehead. Just as I was on the brink of madness, I inexplicably found myself reborn at the age of 18. Fortune favored me. I had 4 years before Jiang Nian recognized her kinship, and this time, I would ensure her torment. However, upon encountering Qian's mother, disbelief washed over me. Memories of this lifetime surged within me. In this life, my plan had failed. Jiang's mother had awakened prematurely. Jiang Nian had even adopted the name Jiang Xi. I had become the one tormented by the Qian family.
Why?
Who truly was reborn? Was it Jiang's mother? If so, would she not know I was responsible for her demise? No, regardless of whether she had resurrected, I must dismantle the Jiang family. Indeed, I could invest in the lucrative ventures from my previous life. But whom should I approach? Xia Yun. I quickly dialed his number, and upon hearing him call me wife, I realized he too had been reborn. Ha ha ha. Fortune smiles upon me. We embezzled funds and amassed sufficient capital. Regrettably, the enterprises no longer required investors.
Fortunately,
My previous admirer Zhao Jia needed partners. He presented us with a contract. We hastily skimmed it and signed, for in my past life, Zhao Jia had always obeyed my wishes and his projects had been truly profitable. Within months, our wealth multiplied exponentially. We sold our home and land and reinvested. Yet, instead of profits, we found ourselves in dire straits.
why?
Hadn't Zhao Jia once been so infatuated with me? Wouldn't he do anything for my sake? The pain was unbearable. They had not even administered anesthetics. Zhao Jia, should I survive this ordeal, I vow to make you suffer. I awoke in a crowded room, roughly hoisted to my feet. The leader directed us to a computer, compelling us to commit fraud over the phone. Each day, if we failed to meet the required amount, we would go without food and endure beatings. Xia Yun and I could only comply. However, after 6 months, we finally found an opportunity to escape. Unfortunately, we crossed paths with Zhao Jia. Infuriated, Xia Yun charged at him, but was swiftly dispatched. Sensing danger, I fled. No one's life is worth less than my own. I fortuitously encountered patrolling officers and hurriedly recounted our plight. Ha, Zhao Jia, let us see how you escape now. The scam operation was successfully dismantled, and Zhao Jia received a death sentence. It served him right for what he did to me. As a result, I was apprehended and imprisoned. Years later, upon my release, I sought out the Qian family, only to find them emaciated and hollow, as though they had been fleeing famine. Upon seeing me, they were filled with rage, eager to inflict violence upon me. It turned out Zhao Jia had burdened me with over 10 million in loans, and when I was incarcerated, the creditors had turned to the Qian family for repayment. They blamed me for everything. Yet, had they not caused this themselves? I felt my breath growing, increasingly labored. Ever since losing a kidney, my health had deteriorated. I had not anticipated that living another life would be more humiliating than the last. The blows rained down heavier, and my consciousness began to fade. Finally, the world fell silent.
The end.